Hey guys, on this episode of EdTech, I'm going to be talking with Scott Tyner, Ernie Bailey, and Rob Raspberry as we discuss digital signage as a service and what this means for the higher ed tech community. All this and more on EdTech.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is EdTech, episode 81, Digital Signage as a Service.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Kramer, AV Beyond the Box.
This is EdTech, the higher ed monthly tech podcast. I'm your host, Bill O'Donnell. I'm joined by Ernie Bailey. How are you, sir?
Just fine.
Good to hear you, sir. As well, Mr. Rob Raspberry. How are you?
Good, fantastic.
Huzzah. And last but not least, Mr. Scott Tyner. How are you, sir?
Hey, Bill. Doing well. Glad to be here again.
Yay. So first and foremost, for a lot of us, we're probably right at the tail end of exams in which, faculty and other folks have probably exhausted their patience, and all of us are suddenly looking going, yay, we can get into the classrooms and do all the maintenance that we've deferred for who knows how long at this point, such as in my case, where we're doing some planned upgrade work. And I got the best phone call this morning, and that was from our mailroom saying, hey, Bill, I think there's some big printers here for you. And I kind of went for a minute, and I'm like, I don't remember ordering printers. Oh, that's right. We ordered Epsons. Right. They make more than just projectors. I forgot about that. Anyways, bump. So going into our first article here, it's actually by our own Scott Tyner, which comes to us from Rave Pubs, and it's, as I say, and once again, I'm sure I can hear Josiah Way just kind of cringing a little bit, but this one actually makes sense. So this one actually talks about, obviously you've heard AV as a service or software as a service and things like that. And Scott actually wrote up an article in which it talked about digital signage as a service. Now, I will admit up front, if you're like me and a couple other campuses and everything, I think this is a great idea. And if you're familiar with AV as a service, digital signage as a service kind of takes this one step further. And, Scott will let you explain that in a bit. But I will just say this, as someone who's from a smaller college, or formerly college, now university, I really think it's a great idea, because right now we have folks who have just like little fiefdoms, and they're like, oh, well, I want just the School of Humanities stuff to just be shown on here. And it's like, okay, at the very least, I've at least just made sure that all the hardware is the same, that we go through a same manufacturer. So later on, if they suddenly want to go with some sort of turnkey software, we're good. But right now it's wrangling cats. So Scott, I'll let you, explain it a little bit to the audience here.
Yeah, we're in much the same place. We started our digital signage systems probably 10 years ago. They started out with a Macintosh computer behind the screen, and obviously matured as time goes on. So we have a server now with players behind it. But I think everybody at my campus would say we don't do digital signage very well. There's a bunch of signs on walls. We don't really know how to make content that is attractive to people and attracts their attention. We've never done any wayfinding. We've never done any interactive type signs. And every time we put up a new sign at the request of a customer, there's a outlay there that goes with it for a monitor, for licensing, and for the box that sits behind it. Mm-hmm. So as I thought about it as a service, and I've been thinking a lot about as a service in different areas, as you kind of pointed out, to me, this seems like one that makes a ton of sense, because I think it's something that, talking to most of my peers, mm-hmm. that we don't really like. We don't really feel like we own the content that's on it. In my institution, it's small as well. And our communications office is interested in external communication more than it is in internal communication. So they kind of want to make sure we don't make a fool of ourselves on these digital signs, but don't have. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's almost like you're right. It's like it's almost the internal branding portion of things. And for us, a lot of times I simply look at our marketing folks and I go, guys, this is like perfect testing grounds. You can go and put your stuff up, see how folks react to it. And they go, well, yeah, but everyone knows that we're here. And I'm like, yes, but strangely enough, if I go walking around on campus, I still see the William Patterson banner attached to just about every light post that I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And it's, this goes back to the ye old days of when I was an integrator, and the integrator itself was Verix. And to be fair, the Berries were very nice to me about everything. I also remember the most horrendous, well, it's not horrendous, but it's the most obvious. They literally had Verix wallpaper going through at least 2 of the conference rooms, to which I looked at the guys. I'm like, what, do we need to be reminded where we are? But I get it. Now looking, if you're at a college campus kind of thing, this goes back to the signage in this regard. You can test the internal branding and you can test internal ads. And if folks respond to that positively, I'd say you'd have a better chance of, showing that off to folks externally. It's almost like doing like a focus group, and then there you go.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things we've run into is that our group, our communications group is so focused on the outside. They haven't focused a lot on the digital signs other than to give some advice. So the thought was, boy, what if somebody came in here, got together for a little while with the communications group, came up with some great templates, came up with some templates that work for the departments, and then truly offered this as a service. And when I think of as a service, I think of everything. They're doing everything. They're installing the sign. They're giving you the sign. They're taking care of the server for it. Literally all you're doing maybe is providing power and data where they're putting up a sign. Ooh. Everything else that company takes care of. And the other piece that attracts me to this, and I think that this is where as a service in general needs to grow, is it seems to be affordable. It seems to me that an integrator could get their money back on their initial outlay in a short amount of time, and then they can make money over time while we're getting the service of them taking care of our digital signage. So that's that win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Now that's the thing and we've had guests on the show and everything of folks who, that's all they do are just internal signage and everything. But if you ask them, well, do you take care of like AV or anything like that? They're like, no, we just do signage. We just do student services and this and that. And which is all fair and good. Not all of us have that ability, nor do all of us have, staff that actually attends to those things. But yeah, no, I agree with you in that. From the perspective of if I'm an integrator / service provider, that's an easy layup. It's how much is like a 55 or a 50-inch display, and you times that by like adding in say a bright sign player that doesn't it does 4K, and you can do kind of split zone stuff and everything else, and that's like including the mount. I'd say that's maybe $1,000. That's really pushing it.
If that much, right? And many of these now you can even think of a bright sign or an Apple TV, and you put an app on the Apple TV. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're talking, and again, we're talking about the integrator's cost, which we know there's not much markup nowadays, but boy, if they can put these in there for the hardware, $600 to $800, they can come up with a really reasonable cost there. And that's the other piece is when somebody comes to you and says, oh, how much is this digital sign I want to put in? It's a lot easier to say, oh, it's X dollars a month than it is, well, for us to do it, it's an X $1,000 investment on your part.
Yeah, that's where I think folks tend to look at. They have there's their operating budget, and then there's their like kind of deferred maintenance. Like there's like the capital cost, and then there's operating cost. If you tell them like, oh yeah, just from the capital cost is this much, they kind of going to go, oh, okay. But then you get into the upkeep and you get into everything else. If you just tell them it's like, like literally much like how a lot of us tend to lease PCs and everything, they kind of go, oh, okay, it's that much. All right. It's got a kind of a turnover and everything. Robert, Ernie, you guys in a similar boat, or it's one of those you guys look at everyone and just go, that's their own albatross to deal with.
No, I think I think it's pretty much similar in most institutions, and the whole thing is you want that uniformity, and you want that ease of access. I know that some of the display companies, such as Samsung, they have third-party companies that actually create content for different channels and stuff like that. So basically, this is just taking it to a different level. And I think the advantage is having each of the departments be able to go to that one source and say, hey, this is the information I want for this event. I want to brand it like this, and then go through the Department of Communications, because I don't know how it is in most institutions, but the Department of Communications, like you said, Scott, they're concerned more with that outside presence rather than what's on campus, and that's their focus. So for them to be able to have the one spot to go to, the one place to create that content and have it approved by them, I think is absolutely brilliant.
Ours is a little bit different. Well, as always, we have a hospital attached. So there's a lot of marketing that goes on there. We do have a lot of visitors on our campus. So we have a robust marketing department that does digital signage. But up until recently, they've either just been, grabbing a couple of guys and going and slapping a TV on a wall with putting a small computer behind it on the network, and then sending someone, if they get a call that is not working, they send their content creator around. She quits creating content or developing pages and stuff and goes and finds a ladder and goes up and resets the computer and stuff. Or they've had workstation support come hang a TV for them. Mm-hmm. And, they see how fast they can do things. So we got dragged in recently, and we kind of like it in that we're going around to all the digital signs. We're redressing the cables behind them so they're not drooping down. The content's beautiful, but the package that's showing it, looks pretty sloppy.
What? It's not normal to have a rat's nest behind the thing?
Well, the rat's nest behind it would be okay. It's under it.
Oh,
in view.
Oh no.
And sometimes you sit there and look and you go, there's a TV and a digital signage box. What are all those cables for? It's like
exactly.
Throw some extra cables back there for the fun of it, right?
Well, or they'll get a 20-foot HDMI cable to go from the computer that's mounted on the wall behind the TV to the TV. And, we found a 30-foot network cable. We're going to plug that in. And, the ISE cables are extra long for both the computer and the display. So we're going through and fixing that up for them as we can, or as they get noticed. We're putting in some sort of managed power system. We like Mid-Atlantic's rack link system. Mm-hmm. So we can, plug a 2-outlet box into a network jack. So if we need to reboot either the player, we're replacing their computers with, much less expensive players that also reboot a whole lot faster and everything. And aren't looking for a keyboard and a mouse every time they reboot. Mm-hmm. So we can reboot that, or we can reboot the display or reboot both of them remotely. And that allows the content person to spend more time developing content. And so you're not going up and seeing messages, seeing a little Windows error message or RSS feed not available running across the bottom of every screen.
Or my favorite, the blue screen of death.
The blue screen of death, that one we can get to usually fix pretty quick. And like I said, those that we're putting in a remote power switch, we can fix them real fast. Our help desk may get noticed before anyone even realizes that it's down, mm-hmm. and we can reset it. So we're kind of providing that service for them, if you will, mm-hmm. And letting them do the content delivery, and cleaning it up.
When you say they do marketing, Ernie, what kind of are you? Literally, is it advertisements for the hospital itself, or are you
for the hospital?
Okay.
We got this new clinic opening up. We've got a new big name physician coming, or we're doing free screenings for breast cancer next month, or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think what you just talked about the piece that sits on the network that allows you to reboot that box. Super cool. I think fits even really well into the AV as a service model, right? Because these integrators now don't even need to come on campus. Better yet, if they're really smart, they can program some type of they ping this box on occasion, And if they don't get a response, they just reboot it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have actually worked it out where, all right, separate from digital signage, we've had some issues with some of our DTP boxes, and so our programmer actually, usually around the middle of the night or so, just goes and just kind of does a cycling reboot of the stuff and everything. Now, that might actually, if you're a programmer or if you're an integrator, you just go, oh, well, at 11:30 at night, well, here, we'll just reboot the digital signage and everything. But once again, that's if I was a programmer, because, that's the easiest thing to do, but still.
I do have to laugh, though, because you talk about the work that they've done. I have to admit, I think in hospitals I've been in, they have the worst digital signage installation. I mean, I've seen a TV, a monitor sitting on a wall, and a good foot or two over is the outlet, and it's like they didn't coordinate. Yeah. And it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, or they will have already had an outlet on the wall for something else. They'll mount the TV there, and they'll mount the display will be up, and then they'll run a network cable. The network guys or the cabling guys will come over and say, well, the TV was in the way, so I put the network jack over here to the side. Thanks.
These are reasons 1 through 5 why I've now spec articulating mounts for just about everything. It's not because, and as I say, it's mostly so I go, oh, you guys need to put this here. We already put it up. Although it came to bite me this morning. We had some folks who I guess decided to jury rig something in one of our classrooms, and it's a 90-inch display, so it has like the big double arm, the big double swing arms and everything. Yeah, the DTP cable got mashed within that, and I'm kind of looking. I'm like, we had it zip tied within the arms. How does this even happen? But yeah, anyway.
Any of our displays that we put up, we do have the new Chief. They've got an extension kit that allows you to pull it off the wall 18 inches or so. It's just over $100. We don't buy them out without that package on it if the TV is less than 100 pounds.
Yeah.
So 86 inch and down.
Yeah. It's is that the one that attaches to the
it goes inside the mount basically. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right.
So
look at that.
And that way, if you have something going on behind the display, instead of sending 4 people over to take the display down to replace a phone sized device, you send one guy over and he can do it by himself.
Yeah, my group used that on a little video wall we put together. Because if you need to get right into the middle of those 4 televisions, you've got a problem. And so they just slide the TV right out and do the work they need to do and slide it right back in. Yeah, very slick.
That's the best thing that Chief has come up with in years.
Yep. Oh, actually, you know what, Scott? Have you seen the? I think it's their. Oh, geez, I have to look it up. Chief actually came up with a system that actually goes on a unistrut rail. Have you seen this?
No.
Oh, so yeah, you take 2 pieces of unistrut and you set it up on the wall and everything, and the thing literally hooks in and attaches to the unistrut on the wall, and it just acts as a rail system for the displays. So literally, your lateral shift is how much unistrut do you have.
So they're not selling that piece in this unit, they're not selling the piece you put on the wall. You just get unistrut put on the wall and the mount goes on the TV.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You build a railroad or a rail on the side, basically, slide it all the way across.
Yeah.
If you line it up right.
Yeah, it's literally designed for video walls and everything. So if you had, say, a 2x3 video wall set up, you would literally only need about 3 rails of unistrut, and then just click. And if I remember right, there's one set of latches that scissors out the display. I think it's about a foot or so, and then another set of latches actually lifts it up and everything. So it creates like a little kickstand, and you can actually scissor it out. So
creativity and creative people blow my mind, because you would think, boy, the monitor mount industry is pretty much settled by now, right? And yet they continue to innovate. It's like, how can you innovate? It's crazy.
Hey,
They're just so creative.
Hey, listen, my first foray into AV was actually doing it was a storefront, and they had a 3x3 video wall set up, and this was up in Boston and everything, and we had to. This was before Chief. This was well before Chief had like the fusion mounts or anything else. And we had to, like, the displays were all pin locked together and everything else. And we get there, and I just took one look, and I'm like, hey, I asked the GM, did you guys, like, flush mount the plywood and everything? No, we just put it up there. If you looked at the wall essentially went, So my first ever task was like, all right, I now have to go to Home Depot and get wood shingles. And I have to I had to shim nine mounts, and it was just one of those ones of me. It was one of those projects that almost automatically made you go, "What am I doing?" Now, once again, the same thing would be what I think like three. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, three or four unistrut rails, and it'd be like, "All right, here you go, I'm done." Like, you sons of. Anyways. So
you can tell a good story, back in my day.
Yeah, that's true. I am doing that is ranking up there with the back in my day. You guys don't know how good you have it with your HDMIs and your DVIs. Although
I had to crimp a BNC.
Oh God, that. All right, so that's the other fun bit, and I'll just ask you guys this one little quick round. In my case, I get to gut and dismantle over this coming summer. Our ballroom, and there's currently a Precis 12x8 video switcher. There's a 12x12 RGB switcher, and then a 20x20 stereo auto patch switcher, which is all going to get condensed down to a 16x16 DM switch and 2 DSP units. I can't begin to tell you just how happy I am, but then I look and I go, oh, wait a minute, we still have like 14 XLR inputs that I have to like tag and say leave. I'm like, oh boy. But imagine having that's one of those things you look back and go, wow, this is all condensed down and so much easier now.
Yeah.
So that being said, Ernie, do you guys have any fun projects for the upcoming winter break? Obviously, we won't be here during.
We've actually started our big project. Our big project is really for August, but we're starting it now. We're taking down our active learning center for a couple of weeks, and we're doing a lot of preliminary stuff to completely upgrade it to a digital system. Putting in mics on every table, Dante speakers over each table, putting in cameras. We're having a 2-part active learning center with 32 tables of 6 students each here in Little Rock, and then at our Fayetteville campus, we'll be putting in a smaller one with 8 tables and make it to a single virtual room for team-based learning.
Now, all right, I will just ask this one little question. Who are you guys using for the Dante speakers? Because that's just one of those things that always kind of perks my interest.
Biamp.
Ah, okay.
Well, excuse me, they're not Dante. They're AVB speakers, not Dante.
Oh.
No. Dante microphones, AVB speakers. But we got
crossing the streams.
Yes, we are. But I think our speakers are serial numbered 1 through 40. We had to wait for them.
How new are they? Well, I'm pretty sure I can still see the fingerprint oil there.
Yeah.
Rob, you have any fun projects on the horizon, or?
No, I mean, I believe the last time we talked, we were in the negotiations to get one of our larger auditoriums refurbished, so that's already started.
Okay.
One of the interesting things, and it's sort of
last time we chatted, you were still herding cats in the with the giant tech show.
Yeah. So
right.
It seems to have come together, fortunately, after a lot of hours of work on it. So we're happy that's gotten started. So I mean, it's pretty much a basic upgrade to a large system that just needs to be,
Needs to be done.
yeah, exactly. So, projector, switcher, 5 cameras, assisted listening, pretty basic stuff.
All the
But
sexy stuff.
Yeah, we're pretty happy about that. Now, the smaller project that we're doing that is interesting is we had a collaboration space, a collaboration classroom in our building where our offices are, and a lot of it got changed into tutoring spaces, and there was a big donor that made some really nice improvements to the front of the building. And so we had a collaboration classroom that now had to be taken offline and made into just this general purpose classroom. And the first thing you're going is, oh my God, you're taking all this tech out and you're creating a general classroom. Well, ultimately you have to sort of look beyond that and say, hey, we have X amount of students, we need X amount of space in classrooms. What is the most optimal use for this space? And in a weird kind of way, turning into a general classroom is definitely more efficient because it allows more classes to be scheduled and more students. So it just makes sense. And so even though you shed a tear because, your pods and switchers are going away, at the same time, it's like, hey, it's for the greater good of the university. So it's okay.
Yeah.
I will just keep it to this on mine, and I'll just go to Scott real quick. Ours, we had to have a very heavy duty topic conversation with Crestron over the fact that we got some HD base T wall plates, which you think would not be that big of a deal, except that these are 7 floor boxes, and this is in our ballrooms, which is a single seamed carpet. And the only way to change, if we were to go to the Crestron DM floor box plates, we would actually have to rip out the FSR brackets, which means we'd also have to rip up the carpeting around the floor box. And yeah, that was one of those things of, okay, how much cursing and screaming do I want to do? And then it turned into our programmer was like, well, I want to be able to control the EDID and this and that. And I'm like, is that it? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we can configure that on the card with DM tools and everything. And we called up Crestron, and they were like, is it still HD base T? Yeah. Are you using the HD base T certified card? Yeah. Yeah, you should be fine. So
should be.
No, you don't understand. Like this was going to be pain. This was like one of those, like, it's bad when even the FSR rep tells you, he's like, oh yeah, are you able to get the cover up and everything? I'm like, I'm not sure. He's like, yeah, you're going to have to muscle that. You're going to have to get some pliers and work at this. And I'm like, thanks. It's always a bad sign when even the customer service rep's like, oh, good luck.
He's laughing at you.
Yes. The worst part is he's right in my backyard too. They're literally one town over from us. So, Scott, you have any fun stuff on the horizon, or?
No, I think like most of us, we actually closed down for just about 2 weeks tomorrow. So we did some maintenance this week. We'll do some maintenance in a few days when we come back before classes start, and we'll be up and running. We do metrics, so we know where the problems existed, and we just go and fix those kind of recurring issues over break.
Yeah, the only fun one I'll leave you guys with is this one. We ended up with a free upgrade for Extron GVE because one way or another, all of a sudden we transferred, we moved the GVE server from one virtual box to the next, and then all of a sudden the database started growing by 1 gigabyte per day. And yeah, and our network folks were like, yeah, we're going to shut this down. So Extron took a look at everything, and they're like, yeah, you had to point it to a different one. They're like, you know what, we'll just upgrade the whole thing right now because you're at 2.6. We're just going to bring you up to the current version, and we're just going to do a clean install entirely. I'm like, cool. So we'll see what funness pops out of that. But yeah. So otherwise, folks, once again, this has been EdTech. You can happily find me on LinkedIn as well as the occasional Twitter at the original OD. Ernie, where can the fine folks find you at?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
All right. Rob?
LinkedIn.
There we go. And Mr. Tyner?
Hey, Billy, you can find me on Twitter mostly, and you do have a profile on LinkedIn as well.
Oh, there you go. Once again, this has been EdTech, the Higher Ed Monthly Tech Podcast. This is part of the AVNation family of podcasts. Once again, this is EdTech.